Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of December 9th through the 15th of 2024. Alright, so this week we have a full moon at the end of the week in grounded Taurus. This is going to help us ground a lot of the deeper energy that we've had going on. We still have the sun in deep and healing Ophiuchus at the moment. Mercury still retrograde in deep Scorpio as well. And so this full moon is all about now grounding some of that energy. Now, as we do get to closer to the weekend, we're going to notice more and more of that momentum building in the lunar cycle, getting up to now the heightened energy of the lunar month. Now, the aspects this week are mostly in the later part of the week, but midweek we do have Venus, the feminine energy, in opposition to Mars, the masculine energy. So with this one, we could be feeling perhaps a little bit of a push and pull between those forces within ourselves, but maybe also interpersonally as well could be really good to balance. How can we find that middle ground between the more receptive aspects of life and the more assertive aspects of life? And do remember that Mars is still retrograde, so a lot of this masculine or assertive nature is going through a reworking, relearning, and reconnecting process still going on this week and for the coming months. So as we do get closer to that full moon, Mercury is going to go station direct on Sunday, so this is going to mark the end of the Mercury retrograde that we've had here these past few weeks, and slowly into next week starting to notice a little bit more of the forward movement. And while that's going on, Mercury will be in a nice trine with Mars, so we could notice maybe some of that assertive and direct energy coming through our communications and coming through our day-to-day life perhaps a bit easier. All right, so let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here is the sky for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, December 9th. And as you can see here, we are using the visible sky on this channel, which is very different from mainstream astrology. You won't see the visible sky in mainstream astrology because unfortunately they do not use it. We are using it here though, and so if you do notice some of the signs are different from what you've been hearing that the signs are in now, then definitely check out that link down below for more information on using the visible sky called True Sidereal Astrology. All right, so let's do a little bit of a recap because recently we've had a lot of sign changes. Last week we had a lot going on astrologically. So let's kind of see where we are coming into this week. So coming into this week, we are coming out of the first quarter moon of the lunar cycle. That's usually a time where we do come to our first challenges, or it's really good to challenge ourselves in the lunar month. But we are coming out of that entering the week, which means we're going to notice again more and more of that momentum building as we do approach the full moon over the weekend. Now the sun is in healing Ophiuchus at the moment and will be all week, so it's great to view life through the lens of what can be healed. Now this is of course maybe not necessarily intentional healing. This can come through of course automatically or unconsciously or without that intention, but it is a really good time for healing. So this could be physical healing, it could be emotional, it could be mental, it could be spiritual, and all in all I think just being aware of the deeper aspects of life and how can we redeem more of the deeper aspects of life to see the full spectrum of the human experience, the full spectrum of the life experience, and see that all of it is part of life, it is part of the true self. And so starting to embrace more of these deeper qualities of ourselves in life is just a great way of working with Ophiuchus. This helps us heal and this helps us really transform because it is a very transformative time of the year when we have this. Now Mercury is retrograde in Scorpio, so when it does come to how we're thinking about things and even how we're communicating, there is definitely that deeper energy as well. So it's still good this week to be flexible, be adaptive, as it's been important during this Mercury retrograde, be willing to learn. But again, a lot of this energy is starting to move forward as we get into next week. Venus is now entering and this week pretty well set into Capricorn. So our values and what we can be enjoying this week is more on the grounding side of things. Capricorn is all about the long-term view. It's all about being patient and in this case, valuing patience, even enjoying patience, taking that more grounded approach and really seeing the value of that. And so anything that is on that level is great. Venus also represents relationships. So there can be a lot of things that can be great to develop there, like commitment, responsibility, patience, perseverance, things like that, both on an enjoyment level and on a relational level. Now, Mars is, of course, just recently retrograde, now, doing this retrograde in Cancer. So this is a really good week, as it's been recently, to take a little bit of a step back with where we're putting our energy. Mars is our fire. Mars is our drive. Mars is what we want to get from life. But it is times like this where over these next few months, it's important to be flexible with that. Be learning what it is that we want, be learning who we are, be learning our desires, right? Have that sense of flexibility when it comes to who we are and what we want in life. In Cancer specifically, this could very much deal with our emotional values, our more personal life values, and perhaps things that are more personal life oriented, like home, family, or the past. Again, a bit reflective on that can be fantastic. So let's go ahead and take a look at each day of the week here with Monday. So the moon will be in Pisces these first few days of the week, Monday through Wednesday. Again, as we start to build momentum in the lunar cycle, a great way to do this will be through bringing in a little bit more of the peace, more of connecting with our soul, more of doing things that are more soul aligned. Pisces is the constellation of the soul, of connecting to the spiritual aspects of ourself, the soul needs of the self, and of course of the human experience as well. So spiritual activities, getting a little bit more peace or going with the flow a little bit more in life, focusing more on mental health or spiritual health, these things can be a great way of working with these first few days. And speaking of all this sort of spiritual and with the sun healing energy, we do have a lot of support for that, particularly around Tuesday, when the sun does trine up to healing Chiron. So again, it doesn't have to be that intention, but Tuesday could be a great day to focus on healing. And all in all, I would say just to express ourselves. With this, just the form of self-expression, we can feel it very healing, very rejuvenating, very transformative, if you will. So just a bit of flow there when it does come to the deeper dimensions and a little bit of support for that self-expression to help us feel a little bit more redeemed or healed in that self-expression. All right, so that's these first few days of the week, a little bit quiet astrologically, but again, building that momentum in the lunar month. Now, as we start to get to the later part of Wednesday, the moon will shift into more active Aries, placing a theme both late Wednesday, but mostly Thursday, on that active energy, which we could say is very similar to that Mars. So midweek, a good day, a good middle part of the week for a bit of that assertiveness, again, with that flexibility, with that reflection we talked about with Mars retrograde, but nonetheless, themes around taking initiative, themes around asserting ourselves or putting some, more of that fire energy into our lives. Now, while we have that, we do have Mars, who's going to be opposite that more feminine and receptive Venus, okay? And this is going to be mostly around the Thursday time period. So this marks the halfway point of the cycle between Venus and Mars, the feminine, masculine aspects of life. So in this case, how can we find the balance between these two principles? We have both within us, we have both in our external experiences as well. And with oppositions, it's all about finding that middle ground. So how can we integrate the feminine and masculine both within and without? Now, oftentimes with oppositions, there can be interpersonal or relational things coming up. So coming up for, again, this integration. How can we see both sides of the coin with Venus? How can we be tactful, receptive, still focused on the other person's needs, while at the same time focused on our own needs, focused on what's right for us, and of course, still being assertive and direct? So how can we be both receptive and assertive with this opposition? I think is a great way of working with this, and just using it as an opportunity to integrate both polarities of the self. And so any intentions around this is great. We can usually come to some sort of insights or higher perspectives about interpersonal stuff, about those aspects of ourselves, and really just what we value and desire in life as a whole. So it could be awareness, could even be some shifts and changes along the life journey in this context for the cycle. And so, yeah, any intentions around that can be fantastic. And all in all, it could be a very constructive transit as we are, again, integrating these two oppositions. So that's going to be Thursday, again, with that moon in more assertive Aries as well. Now, as we start to get into the Friday time period, the moon will start to shift into Taurus for the whole rest of the weekend. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that moon in Taurus gearing up for the full moon. And this is where we will really start to get into that highest energy of the lunar month in the sense of coming up to that halfway point. So Taurus is all about taking things one step at a time, stopping to smell the roses, grounding ourselves, first of all, in ourselves. Taurus is about connecting to our inner resources, things like self-worth, self-value, self-belief, and even self-reliance. This is all very important to ground a lot of the healing energy that we've been talking about, right? With the sun, of course, opposite that in Ophiuchus. So while it is, of course, the time of the year and the energy around deeper healing, personal transformation, all this we've been talking about, the real key to doing that is grounding, right? That's what the, let's say, ancestors taught us, or the shamans taught us, is that in order to heal, in order to really connect to that deeper dimension, we do have to ground ourselves. And we can do this, of course, within, through those inner resources I talked about, but also without as well, in the sense of nature, connecting more with our senses, again, our bodies in the sense of the sensual, or maybe some of the natural energies of life, or food, nutrition, aroma, massage even, and just the more aesthetic and physical beauty aspects of life can be really good with Taurus too. So anyways, more of that sensual, more of that earthy, more of that grounding energy really coming up to the halfway point. So late Saturday, early Sunday will be the full moon for most of us here. And all in all, just doing this status check with how things are, both in the healing world and in this case, in the more earthy world. So doing a status check with, are we connecting to our inner strength, inner resources? Are we connecting to the outer resources, the material values of life, as of course those are very important too. Now the full moon will be quite close to Jupiter, so Jupiter has been giving us actually a lot of insights and higher perspective about how we can connect more with that grounding or natural aspect of life. So this will likely be a very nice step in the right direction. Jupiter is still retrograde, so it's still good to be a bit reflective on that, but nonetheless the full moon will be activating it. And we do have a square up to Neptune with this. So as a reminder, while we are doing this status check and maybe making some of these shifts and changes to incorporate more of that grounded, resourceful energy, to do so in a way that's still grounded with any kinds of ideals or hopes or wishes. This stuff can actually be quite strong during a full moon square to Neptune like this. Neptune in a square especially can really enlarge the ideals, the dreams, the fantasies, right? The rose-colored glasses, the putting things or people on pedestals, right? This kind of idealistic nature, a little bit under the influence, if you will. So this can, of course, all be very constructive. And so the idea here is to, yes, connect with our soul. And hopefully earlier in the week when we had that Pisces energy, we've kind of connected a little bit more with that soul by this point. But yes, to listen to the soul, all these visions, these ideals, these dreams are projections of the mind, but they are projections that are in a way kind of still coming from our soul, right? It's just what the mind is making sense of it as. So yes, using this time to connect with our soul, asking ourselves what is most soul important to us in life, and taking the constructive and grounded approaches to implementing that. So instead of getting whisked away into any of those ideals, or the other side, maybe being apathetic, instead to really ground it, to say, okay, this is perhaps what I really need on a soul level, or this is perhaps what's really good for my soul health or mental health, and what are the actions I can actually take on that? The square is all about integrating. It's all about taking the constructive actions towards that. So anything like spiritual activities, spiritual developments, mental health, spiritual health, all that is also very good with this full moon. Okay, so that's going to be the full moon there, Saturday, Sunday. Leading up to that, we do have a little bit of harmony with Mercury. Mercury is going to be sextiling Venus on Friday. That can give us a little bit of, again, that more tactful or receptive approach to our communications, which can be great. This is also about the time where we've integrated that Venus and Mars opposition, making us feel a little bit more integrated with, again, that feminine, masculine part of ourselves. We've also got Mercury trining Mars, not going exact, but it's sort of in orb as these planets are retrograde. So maybe a little bit of that assertiveness coming through in our communications a little bit easier, maybe a little bit of that fire with our mind or what we're thinking about or what we're learning about over the weekend can be supportive as well. But this is all mainly around Mercury being stationed. So this marks the end of the Mercury retrograde time period that we've had, and so Sunday a good time along with the full moon to just sort of pause a little bit. Things are about to shift forward, so it's good to kind of, let the energy slow down and start to go the other direction. It's been a time of reflection. It's been a time of reworking, rethinking, redoing, being flexible. And although that's still great to continue to do, of course, starting to notice that perhaps things are moving a little bit more forward in some of these day-to-day areas and with just our perspective on things in general. Okay, so we'll talk more about that next week once Mercury builds a little bit more of that momentum. All right, everyone. So that's the week in a nutshell. The most important thing I would say is the full moon centered around the Mercury direct halfway point of the lunar cycle. As we approach the weekend, we get to that higher energy, but also the status check around the weekend, doing an examination or a status check with the grounding qualities of life, both inner grounding and external grounding. And perhaps how can that assist us in the process of healing and personal transformation that we've already been involved with. Leading up to that, we have this Venus opposite Mars. So midweek, how can we balance that feminine and masculine aspects of ourselves and perhaps in those interpersonal relationships? All right, so everyone have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for the live stream. We're going to go live here in just a few hours after this upload every Sunday at the same time. If you haven't joined us yet, definitely do so. It will be on the YouTube channel, or if you're part of MTZ Insiders, it's part of the newsletter link also. But have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you all next time for the next astrology forecast. Take care.